It might be early, but 2024 has already been a great year for gamers. Unexpected hits like Palworld and Helldivers 2 have blown us away and set the stage for future developers to take unique approaches to marketing their own games. Looking ahead, we've got the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC to look forward to, as well as Star Wars Outlaws, a Final Fantasy XIV expansion, and so much more. All that said, just like any year, not every game that's been released this year has been a winner. Some gamers narrowly miss the mark and become forgettable failures. At other times, bizarre decisions from developers and publishers alike leave players with a game that looks like it was a bad idea from the very beginning. 2024 has already seen failures big and small, and though we might not be talking about them in a year's time, we'll go ahead and memorialize these fallen titles here. The writing was on the wall before Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League even released. Early previews of the game were looking bleak, and things went from bad to worse when publisher Warner Bros. Games decided not to send review codes to most outlets before the game launched. That not only sent a message that the publisher didn't believe in the game, but also forced anyone who wanted the $100 deluxe edition that included early access to the game to make their purchase completely on blind faith. When Suicide Squad finally dropped on February 2nd, everyone immediately realized why that was the case.
My Justice League will burn this earth down for me.
After paying $70 to pick up the game, players quickly realized that they were dealing with some of the worst impulses of the live service model. Suicide Squad is overflowing with generic missions that stubbornly refuse to offer any memorable rewards. Combat is largely by the numbers, and the enemies are repetitive roadblocks that don't actually put up much of a fight. The game has some cool ideas like fun traversal methods and interesting ways to use the abilities of various team members, but all of that is buried by the onslaught of filler quests and an utterly lackluster story. The failure of Kill the Justice League ended up having an adverse impact on Warner Bros.' bottom line, with head honcho David Zaslav specifically citing the game as a sales disappointment, particularly when compared to last year's numbers. In many ways, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is the 2024 flop that keeps on flopping. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's Metacritic score ranges from 60 to 63, depending on the platform. Devil May Cry might be one of the coolest gaming franchises out there, and over the years it's given us hours of heart-pumping action gameplay. The games tend to be fast-paced and loaded with unique combat mechanics that make hacking and slashing your way through enemies an absolute blast. Peak of Combat was supposed to bring all the joy of DMC games to mobile platforms, but it hasn't worked out. It's less that Peak of Combat falls flat on its face, and more that the game doesn't try to do much in the first place. Instead of wowing fans with exciting new combat mechanics, the game essentially copies all the systems from Honkai Impact 3rd, but it only does so half-heartedly. The combat is beyond repetitive. You might be able to squint at Peak of Combat long enough to play the game anyway, if not for the overdone gotcha mechanics that plague so many mobile games. The game's confusing series of progression systems also constantly bombard you with notifications, all with the goal of ultimately roping you into buying some of the game's premium currency. This game, which has a Metacritic score of 41, is absolutely one to avoid. Silent Hill: The Short Message unfortunately makes this list despite its few redeeming qualities. The game is entirely free, and not in the sense of the free-to-play games we've all come to dread. It's also a legitimate console entry in the Silent Hill franchise, which is something that die-hard fans have wanted for years. Sadly, The Short Message doesn't do anything particularly well. The story is about as paint-by-numbers horror as you can possibly get, with teenage main characters suffering from an amount of angst that would feel right at home in a 90s teen movie. There aren't any real exciting twists in the plot, and the gameplay isn't really going to keep you on the edge of your seat. For the most part, you spend your time in The Short Message walking into spooky rooms, interacting with creepy objects, and uncovering tidbits of the story. You get to partake in a chase scene with a genuinely creepy monster every now and then, but those moments aren't liable to spike your heart rate too much. Some critics also found the game's portrayal of mental illness to be somewhat problematic, as well as underdeveloped.
What did I do to deserve this?
For what it is, the game, which has a Metacritic score of 52, isn't worth complaining about all that much, but it really isn't worth taking the time to play either. Skull and Bones was a long time coming, and it unfortunately disappointed pretty much everyone who spent years waiting for it to launch. Skull and Bones finally set sail following a decade of development, multiple delays, and a reported $200 million budget to show for it. The game is meant to offer a rousing simulation of a pirate's life on the high seas, but many players have noted that monotony sets in quickly. Repetitive missions and skirmishes put a damper on the solid ship customization and combat mechanics, reducing many of the battles on the high seas to feeling like a routine. Critical reviews noted that the game feels surprisingly limited in what it offers, making its $70 price tag and Ubisoft's promises of a quadruple A experience feel particularly bold, and not in a good way. Not helping matters is the lack of a cohesive story or an open world for pirates to traverse on foot, not to mention the presence of a currency system for microtransactions, all of which making the game feel less like a fully realized title being sold at full price. User reviews have been especially harsh, with players decrying the game's grinding progression system and bugs on the console release. Though Ubisoft plans to continue updating the game in the future, Skull and Bones has thus far failed to reach the heights of previous pirate-centric games like Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and Sea of Thieves, both of which have been out for quite a while. As of this writing, Skull and Bones is reportedly having trouble maintaining a healthy player base, thanks largely to this bad first impression. With Metacritic scores ranging from 58 to 63, depending on the platform, it's safe to say that Skull and Bones is sleeping with the fishes.